Hello and welcome to another episode of Podcast of the Rings, also known as Lord of the Podcasts.
Since before the breaking of the first silence, we've had many names.
And on this day of after the breaking of the silence, we're talking about Rankin and Bass's The Hobbit. Alexander Mitchell,
Jessica.
How are you?
Doing well. How about you?
I'm doing just fine, thank you. How does this day find you?
This day finds me very well indeed.
Yeah, I'm a little extra deep and raspier right now. I don't know if you've
Yeah, that
noticed.
smoky voice.
Yeah, literally. No, I haven't smoked in a couple weeks, so
Must have been all the smoking in this children's cartoon that we saw.
certainly quite a lot of smoking. Man, I can understand why previous generations really dug smoking because Tolkien really fantasized it.
Oh yeah, it's so cool.
He really sexified it. So I wanted to start off with a new tradition today.
Ooh, I saw you had something in your hands there.
I did. And so I'm not going to quite explain it. It won't be a surprise any other day after this. But
Sure.
Today it will be a surprise. But I'll tell you, you're going to tell me what to do in a second. You're going to tell me when to stop.
Ooh, so mysterious.
Yeah. And you can start whenever you want to tell me to stop.
Oh, right now?
Yeah.
Okay, and stop.
Okay. I have found it. Alex, your Tolkien tarot card
Ooh.
is the Ace of Cups.
Ooh.
So that's a minor arcana card. And no one can see this because we don't do normal episodes as video episodes. But these are Lord of the Rings tarot. It's a tarot deck by Insight Editions. And it's written by Casey Gilly, if we're saying the name correctly. And there's beautifully... Why did I get this? Why did I get this whole thing?
Well, I believe this was an anniversary gift. Well, not an anniversary, but a versary gift.
A versary.
Because Anna means year. But, a versary gift that I got for you.
It's a versary gift.
Yeah.
The only complication is the guide that is wonderful. It's nice. They just didn't give you tarot cards. The guide's very large.
It's like one of those fold-out things. It's like a big...
yeah, that's why I was trying to hide it.
Sprawling thing.
Yeah, it could be... It's kind of like the map in a paperback version of Lord of the Rings. It's unwieldy, you know?
So it's fitting. It's fitting for the tarot
Oh,
deck.
it feels like exactly like that. All right, so the way I pulled it was upright. And so the Ace of Cups... They even have reversed... readings. That's awesome.
Before we get into the reading, can you just hold up the card to me and I can describe it to the audience?
Sure.
Because you did say we're not in a video medium.
Well, no, I told them what it was.
Yeah, so the Ace of Cups, because the artwork on these cards is beautiful.
I see. But...
So the Ace of Cups appears to be a treant holding up I wouldn't call it a chalice, but a bowl. And I would imagine that in that bowl is the Ent draft.
That's what I'm thinking.
That Merry and Pippin encounter.
Imbibe.
Yeah, and it's kind of holding it up in front of its mouth, so its eyes are peering over, and it's just gorgeous.
Its eyes, it's got a Puss in Boots Shrek vibe, like looking at you.
The big, watery, kind of cute eyes,
yeah. Are you of the opinion that Ents should have been more man-like than they were tree-like in the movies?
I like the depiction in the movies, but yeah, they're definitely
They're leaning hard into the tree person version of it when Tolkien describes them otherwise as man tree person.
Yeah, they're kind of somewhere between as opposed to just trees that are animate, because those are separate things. Those are more like the horns that we do see and, creatures like Old Man Willow. But I like the depiction because it is something I think that audiences can grab onto.
Totally.
And it is based on artwork that has been done by people. So I think people can imagine them how they will, and that's the beauty of Tolkien's world, is everyone has their own picture in their head.
Right.
And I think a lot of us have been informed by the Peter Jackson films if we grew up with them or have seen them a lot. So I like Treebeard, and I like the other Ents depictions in the Jackson movies.
I think,
even if they're not 100%.
I really think that was the most clear. I think that was the most aligned with my vision of what was in the books, was his vision of Treebeard. I seem to remember while watching it in the films, like, what? That's exactly what I thought it would be. Yeah. And I feel like the statues of Elendil and Arondir, not Arondir, Isildur and Aarion were, I think I seem to remember feeling similar.
Anarion.
The Aarion, okay? We know I should never try. Okay.
There actually, I'm sure we'll get in Rings of Power that there is an Aarion statue, because she is a builder, so she's going to sort of do a vanity project, but that gets torn down or something, and so that's why we don't see it in the Third Age. But canonically, they could make that happen. Which they could insert it into there. I
have one more thing I want to talk to you before we get to the meat of it.
Give me the meat.
Yeah, give it to me, roll. The upright Ace of Cups, like all aces, represents, how fitting, the beginning of a journey. The suit of cups is grounded in emotions, matters of the heart, and understanding your feelings. So the ace signifies a new relationship coming into your life. I bet it better not be. This could be a partnership, okay, an alliance, or a relationship with someone with whom you want to share your life. I better not be.
Oh, wow.
Whatever it is, give wholly of yourself, and in turn you will receive unexpected and life-changing love.
That is very fitting.
I love that, especially with our new tradition of pulling cards.
Yeah, and like I think as the first card that was drawn from that deck that I gave to you, that's that's so cute.
That's the first reading I've done from it too. That's very sweet. I know everyone has mixed feelings about tarot cards. My ultimate. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, my ultimate opinion is that if it helps you understand your day and your life a little bit better, what harm can it bring? And I've had amazing readings that were altering, and then I've had wah, you know,
right.
But I like the mystery of it a little bit. It's fun.
And the card is also fitting in terms of beginning new journeys, because today we're talking about the Hobbit, and Bilbo.
Oh my
begins a new journey and a new chapter of his life in this story.
And we are starting in the new element of our story too. I did want to ask you or talk about this briefly. Have you seen this rumor that some guy, I think his name is Chris Gore, thinks that the showrunners are going to get sidelined, not visibly fired, but they're going to hire new showrunners because Amazon's disappointed with how they did the show?
I have not seen this.
Someone responded to one of our tweets and was like, the one that went a little viral, and they were like, I could imagine that this is what the dialogue is in the series. I could imagine it be this bad, essentially, is what they were saying. And it's a good thing that the showrunners got sidelined. And so it was one rumor reported on by one guy who claims to know someone in Amazon and how they're handling things internally. And it, to be fair to some of the people that have picked up this quote unquote story, they tend to mark it down as rumor, but the small contingency of loud racists on the internet or decriers seem to think it's a thing that's actually happening. And so I was curious if you had heard. There's no conversation about that happening anywhere, right? It's just like, even if it was happening, we would never know that.
Well, yeah, I mean, and when they say like getting sidelined, does it mean in title they'll still be the showrunners, but they're going to bring in new people to...
That's what this person was insinuating, but that they'll likely stay in the writer's room? And I can't imagine Amazon doing that.
No,
with what
it
was
would be so
critically
foolish.
It would be so foolish, and it's for what otherwise was a critically. Not critically. It was a successful run of a series. It's not even done, the full potential of it, and they spent 5 years building up to this. They're not just gonna
Right. They would have, if this was a decision to be made, it would have been made sooner. Because to think that this is true is to also think that Amazon was totally like hands off and just like, all right, JD and Patrick, like go do your thing. And then when the series dropped, they went, oh, that's what you did. We're going to sideline you. And it's like, clearly when they're spending that much money, that's not going to happen.
I bet you they had vetted audiences or like they had to have so many different test audiences. And you remember the article that I had you read from, I think it was Vanity Fair, of the two of them, JD and them talking about now that everything has been revealed, what do they expect for season 2? And you were mad because they kind of made it sound like it might have been a chance meeting for Galadriel and Halbrand.
Yeah, I wasn't mad, but I was a little bit like, okay.
Fair. No, totally. But one of the things I think, if you remember, they said was, or they asked, will you change things based off of people's reactions in season 2? And they gave the political answer of, a lot of it's set in stone, but we are listening. And there's a whole nother article that was like, they're going to change things. They're listening, you guys.
Yeah. And there's both takes, I'm sure, not having read any of these. There's both takes of, oh, they're listening to the fans. Yay. And then there's the naysayers going, see, they're just kowtowing to whatever.
No, that's exactly what I mean. That they're actually listening because they know that they made mistakes. So they hear us is kind of what that article
or
is
they're
saying
they're just going to listen to the people who are not critical and see, they're just, shills and they're trying to just appease the masses and they're not true to whatever, so you can take that statement a million ways, which is why they have to give political answers.
It really was it was vague on purpose. And I just thought it was really interesting how you can, I would like to give reporters a little bit more credit, but either they really believe and imbued that story with what they wanted it to be, or they know that it's going to resonate with dumb people and they're posting it for that reason.
They have two jobs. One job is to report news. The other job is to get people to click on their article. Right. And so they're going to put the spin or emphasize the thing that they know will make, a certain portion of the fan base, whichever one they want to appeal to, click on it. And so if they sensationalize and give the most extreme, if not totally true, version of events, then they'll get people to click on their article. No one's going to click on the article that's just reporting like, they said this, we don't know anything. Because that's the truth.
That's literally the truth. Is like no one's, and I was thinking back on it too, that Charlie Vickers really made a mistake by mentioning he auditioned, but with reading Richard III monologues, like. It really is like, it's like they had me read all sorts of things, this and Richard III. I'm like, dude, no, like someone should have gone through like a fine tooth comb with him, like what he could have said and what he couldn't said, because there's a lot of, if you go through some of his interviews where he's like, basically someone's deadpan asking him, are you Sauron? He goes, well,
sure.
It's fine because people like yourself didn't want it to be true, so I don't think people.
I was denying it.
You really
despite
were.
all the signs.
It was all there. I was literally going to bed last night thinking about, and he turns to the steel working area. What is it? The forge.
The forge.
He looks direct. It's written. Looks towards the forge longingly. I'm sure.
Yeah, they cut a line that said, might make some rings.
Might make some rings. It was so obvious. It was a little too obvious.
You might as well have said that.
Earrings for elves. So anyway, I just thought it was really interesting that people have snowballed this rumor to be reality.
I think Amazon will have looked at Star Wars, let's say, and not make that same mistake of let's switch people out every
We have no way of
new
knowing.
thing.
We have no way of knowing if Amazon will learn from anyone else's mistakes, especially since it's on the newer side of content creation, kind of.
I think they will have.
I think so,
especially considering.
Oh, I guess The Boys, and I mean, they
The Boys is great.
They do know what they're doing to some extent. I don't know if we talked about this on the podcast, but I think Hector or Scott Rubin was the one who said they're not judging the success of the TV show by the success of the TV show. They're judging to see how many people watched all of the Peter Jackson trilogies, who went to go buy the Rankin and Bass Hobbit, who bought a Lord of the Rings tarot card deck, who created content, who made we did all of it. We did all of it.
Amazon is in the unique position of not just being a streaming service.
Like Disney.
Correct.
Which,
so
yeah,
they are making decisions based on a multitude of factors.
So I don't care
other
if
streaming services aren't.
They don't care that people are upset that there are people of color in the show. Because people are engaging.
Correct.
Ultimately, is my point.
Yeah.
I don't claim to have a temperature on Amazon's actual morals in the world. I think we all have opinions.
Have any.
Right. So they don't care whether it's a good or bad thing. They know that it will get attention.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is my point.
And they'll put out the statements. And look, I agree with these statements, but whether or not Amazon does, they'll put out the statements like in support of their cast and everything against the harassment, and that's great, and they should. But do they actually ethically buy those things, or are they doing it because that's the thing? It's
hard to ascribe ethics to a corporation.
Yeah, because they're not a person; they don't have any. But we're getting into the weeds here.
Again, ultimately, it's funny to think anyone's opinion matters at all, because it really doesn't when it comes down to it. We did all the things Amazon wanted us to do, which was buy more Lord of the Rings stuff, Google it way more, and watch all the stuff several times over. So it's a successful series.
And we're still waiting on that check from you, Amazon. So I'm checking my mailbox.
You'd think that it would be quicker. So sadly, one of the creators of the animated Hobbit passed away recently.
Yes.
So we thought when we were realizing, okay, we know we want to look at all the content that's out there, read all the books, etc., one by one eventually. An easy drop-in is The Hobbit, and the timing is sad but good to be able to watch this together.
And in our journey through the rest of Tolkien's work and all of the things that we can discuss and talk about, a good starting point, I think, is with, an adaptation of, but the first sort of work in this world that he published, The Hobbit. Mm-hmm. And that is a lot of people's introduction to the world of Middle-earth, and it's a great story. And this was one of the...
It's also your first thing, too.
Exactly. I had a old bootleg VHS copy of this cartoon that I watched all the time, wore the tape out as a kid. So fond memories for me in particular with this film. I haven't seen it in a while, so it was interesting coming back to it all these years later. Mm-hmm. Had you seen this before we watched it?
I think I conflated the live action animation one with this.
The Ralph Bakshi film.
Correct. Because
which we'll eventually cover.
Corella. But because the imagery is so familiar. You also on your Twitch channel have a picture of the golem. But the imagery is familiar enough where I was like, oh, I feel like I've seen it, but I don't think I have ever seen it. Or if I ever saw it, it was in passing while I was on TV with my dad. Like, because again, my first drop-in was the book, The Hobbit, and I was like I had to be 13, maybe. Yeah, 13 or so. So but I remember earlier than that seeing the live action image fights. So this was very new to me, and wild.
So as I'm interested, as someone who this was really your first real exposure to this film, what were your overall impressions of it? Because I've seen it so many times. I know all the beats.
Right.
I'm biased in my opinion of what I think of it. I'm going to look on it with rose-tinted glasses. What did you think overall as we were watching this when we got to the end? What were your general thoughts?
What I think they did fairly well, and what makes it watchable, is that it
what its saving grace is.
Well, is that it does hit all the beats of the story kind of simply. And so like if you're like we could watch this with Scott's kids and have a good time. Like,
yes, it's designed for kids.
It is designed for kids, and Gandalf is exactly what you expect Gandalf to be. There's certain things that like they do it well. I don't know what to say, Alex. Because I think honestly, I don't think I like it.
Sure,
because
and that's
it's
valid.
so cheesy and it's so bad. But I mean, not bad, but it's I haven't watched Rudolph in a while, and I haven't watched Jack Frost in a while, or the Saint Nick's and of Rankin and Bass. And I always want to say Rankin Bass, but
Rankin / Bass. You can
Rankin / Bass. I know. I didn't know that it was Rankin and Bass for until maybe like 5 years ago. So I just knew that those.
You just thought it was one name, Rankin.
I just didn't
Bass.
know. No, I didn't even know what it was. I didn't know that there was a name.
Really?
Yeah, we just watched them. So then, like 1 year leading up to the holidays, one of the teachers that was like basically a variety teacher at my improv school was teaching Christmas stories, and she goes, "Okay, great. The next one we're gonna do is Rankin and Bass." And I'm like, "What is that?" I was totally lost. And thankfully, the one that my team got pitched was sitcom Christmas, and we did it like Friends, kind of. Anyway, so I learned in that moment what Rankin and Bass was, and went, "Oh, I know this intimately." Yeah. I feel like if you were to watch Rudolph right now, despite its overtones of liking somebody only because they're useful and being okay with bullying and your dad not liking you for who you are, I think it's got to stand up quality wise,
yes,
right?
I think I'm not intimately familiar with those Christmas ones. I've seen them a few times. I didn't grow up with them, but when I've seen them, I would say the production quality on those, I mean, because they're stop motion. The stop motion in those is gorgeous. The production quality of this is way lower. It's cheaply animated. We noticed at various points there seems like there should be sound effects. Especially at the end.
I think that's just what we got. I think something happened with the version we got, because one of the versions we got was like eagle screaming, and all we hear is boom, 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 boom.
Well,
boom,
I bought it on Amazon, so
oh, hey Bezos,
give us that missing audio track. Yeah, the subtitles didn't line up. It was weird, but maybe that was just for people who need subtitles, who are maybe either hard of hearing or can't hear, and they're like, well, we'll just put eagle screaming and they'll imagine it. Like, why not?
God.
So actually, it's a better experience.
It was actually kind of nice not to get like barraged in the ears with like goblin screams and stuff like that.
But there were like shots of like Smaug.
Oh,
that's another thing we'll get to. Smaug like flying over and like arrows hitting him, and there's no sounds. There's no like dragon noises or anything.
Something had to be missing. Some sort of track was missing.
I wish I still had my old bootleg copy to compare.
Oh, or if you have one and you watched it in order to be part of this conversation, let us know if your version, if you didn't watch the Amazon one, has any
sound
effects on it. I guess what I want to say is that it's absolutely not bad. It's absolutely charming. There are some very cool things about it, and it's certainly of an era. Especially, while I say all those things, I kept that in mind, and I would sort of happily watch this again with you, and definitely show this to children.
It definitely is of an era. It's very 70s. in terms of the music and I think the voice acting, like, but for me, the things that stuck with me to this day, the music is great.
Right.
And it's a through line throughout. The songs stick in your head, and they're using, well, except for the amazing title track that the themes trickle throughout. Da 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 comes up so many times.
But it makes so much sense why, it does.
Yeah. So that's the only one with original lyrics. Everything else is taken from the book, which again is very Tolkien, having the songs there. So they set them beautifully to music. That's what stands out for me.
I understand. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm so biased because I love so much about this that I know is bad.
That's so great. Like, what else is that there for except for not to love it? I just don't know. Is if like if you showed someone and didn't give them any subjectivity before watching it, how someone would feel. Do you know what I mean? Like, if they never saw a single Hobbit before, and you didn't get sat down by your dad or mom saying, I love this, let's watch this. Like, what's the impression?
If they were a kid, they would probably like it. If they were an adult and you were like, here's your introduction to Tolkien, I'm going to give you no context, they'd be like, what the heck is this?
So, funnily enough, Geeks with Shields, a friend of the podcast, said that this was their first exposure to lotr as a child, and it scared the hell out of me as a 4-year-old.
Oh yeah.
And my joke on this one on the Twitter, when I was asking people for their opinion, I said, well, like, tell us who your favorite dwarf is. They said, let's be honest, almost all the dwarves are interchangeable, which is also it's also true. I think Bombur is only visually different.
Bombur's visually different, and they Balin as the scout.
Right. That's so odd, though. It's so odd.
What is?
I'm sorry. The depiction of the dwarves, was actually my least favorite. Well,
really?
That's not true. I'll say this: the depiction of the Wood Elves actually rung a bell somewhere. Like, it kind of seemed familiar-ish. But I hate the description of the Wood Elves, or like the depiction of it. Like, what are you doing?
They're weird.
It's such a weird way, especially after showing us Elrond. Like, I guess they're just trying to show us that, like, they're kind of the bad guy in this.
Yeah, which
they're personifying it that way. Because I had forgotten that they were imprisoned by Wood Elves.
Yeah. So the depiction of them as like the kind of darker skinned and like wrinkly, like
reptile.
It's weird. And then, like, I don't know. I asked you this because I remembered the voice, but I never thought about it. I'm like, what accent is the voice actor playing Thranduil doing? What accent is that? It's so odd.
I thought the Russian but it wasn't.
Yeah, it's almost like Russian mixed with Jamaican or something.
Ooh.
I don't.
Good for him. He invented something.
Yeah, like, it's a unique creation, right? We can't have this sound like normal people. They're elves.
Yeah, right. I think I didn't like the depiction because I just didn't think that the dwarves needed to be so old in order to go on this gigantic journey. I didn't envision them as that old, I guess, is my point. I know Keely and Feely are the youngest, but I did not picture, Thorin to be a shorter Gandalf. Because that's basically what Thorin wants to be, is Gandalf in this. It's kind of, I think so.
He's wrinkly, but he doesn't
so
seem like
crotchety. He's so crotchety.
Well, and so that's one of the things. Like, I wanted to talk about some of the differences from the book, because I agree with you. I think they hit most of the main beats, but one of the beats they don't hit that's important, and it even came up in a little Amazon X-ray.
Right. Thank you, Bezos.
Thank
you, Daddy Bezos.
Thank you, Bezos. Waiting on that check. One of the key differences is there's no Arkenstone,
right,
in this, which I get why they cut it.
Is the Arkenstone like reddish? I don't, because I remember it only from reading it.
I don't think so. I'm trying to remember what color they describe it as, if any. I mean, it's
I'm
a
picturing it
gemstone.
as a particular gem. There's a gem that looks like it's wooden with like a deep red and like lines of like a tan color in between. But I think that's just how I remembered it, like a red ruby or something. I had this misconception for the last 5 years that I reread The Hobbit. I did not.
So there's things now that we're going through it that you're like, oh.
I may have tried to and went, you know what? I don't need to read The Hobbit. I'll just start with The Fellowship, and then hardly got into The Fellowship as well. So I think I may have just convinced myself I read it because I was like, oh, definitely didn't remember the Arkenstone, but I vividly remember it now that it was brought up. You know,
so there's no it says it says it's shown with its own pale light, but it reflected sparks of white radiance with glints of rainbow. So I don't think there's any particular
then maybe
color
I thought it
it's
was
described
opal-ish.
Yeah, I think it's meant to be like maybe a clear gem, like a diamond almost.
Okay. Yeah, I think I did remember it as like a round gem or something like that.
Yeah, but there's no Arkenstone in this movie, which is a central conflict between. That is the conflict at the end between Bilbo and Thorin, because he ends up stealing the Arkenstone. Well, taking the Arkenstone before they find it in the Hoard. Bilbo does, and then he goes when there's kind of a standoff between. Right, the men of Dale and the elves and the dwarves in the Lonely Mountain. They're basically under siege. He sneaks out and gives it to Bard as a bartering chip. And when Thorin finds out about this, he casts Bilbo out. And so it's a main conflict, which I get why they cut it, because they're trying to make this a trim, 70 minutes. It's
also a child's show. Like try to explain them, well, he stole a piece of... And they're bartering, and it's very nuanced.
It's politics. Yeah, it's the most politics we get. But that is where you get the sort of apology on Thorin's deathbed.
Oh, I see.
And so in this version, they went, well, we still want to have this touching scene between Thorin and Bilbo, so how do we get there? And so they're like, let's just have Thorin be kind of a dick. And then there's like the scene when they're getting ready for battle. He's like, blah, blah, blah. And so that's kind of where he's forgiven, which in the book, they grow to respect Bilbo, and he basically is leading them at certain points. And he's the one in charge pretty much by the end of it for a lot of events and having these ideas. And then it's not until that moment that Thorin sort of... they have conflict because he's respecting Bilbo, right? He's the reason that Smaug was defeated and everything. So, or at least in part. So that's a big change, and I think it changes Thorin's character. But again, kids movie, they got to keep it simple. So that brings up another point. We're talking about Smaug. Pet peeve of mine from scene 1. They keep calling him Smaug. They keep saying Smaug.
Who cares? Stop gatekeeping. How people say things.
I'm not gatekeeping. I'm just saying, could you not have looked that up?
Smaug? How do you know it's Smaug?
Because Tolkien has whole appendices on how to pronounce things. It's a diphthong.
Yeah,
Ow. Ow.
But what if people like saying Smaug? I liked saying Smaug for a long time, and then people shamed me.
I'm not trying to shame anybody.
Be better, do better. Who just lets people say Sauron.
Look, you can say what you want, and I'm not going to shame you. I'm not judging. I'm just saying it bothered me, and that's fine. I'm allowed to have feelings, but I'm not going to get angry and yell at the person or tell them they're wrong, but I am going to cringe inside and go, and maybe...
cringed outside, too.
Yes. And maybe the 5th, 7th, 8th, 11th time they say it, be like, well, it is Smaug. And that's fine. You can keep saying it however you want, but I'm just letting you know. If
no one asked you.
Change, if you want to change the way you say it, you're welcome to. If you want to keep saying it like a good Midwesterner, Smaug, then you can.
Smag.
Sauron.
Sauron. Tolkien.
So it bothered me.
I understand.
But it's fine.
I understand.
They make it up with all the good songs.
I think it was because of the trilogy, the Hobbit trilogy that they squeezed out of Peter Jackson, that I learned that was Smaug, and so it took a lot of unlearning, because I think Tolkien entered my awareness around that time too. So it was a lot of like unlearning that I had to do, because like in school so I think I told you, and I mentioned on the podcast, I had to read The Hobbit for school, which is fascinating, I think, because it's kind of cool, right? And I didn't even think about it like, oh, probably by that age we're ready for that level of
how old were you when
13 or 12 or 13? So I was like 7th grade. So we're like about ready for that level of intricate, many words, different emotion. You know, it's not a super difficult book, because we're also, you and I just finished The Fellowship, and we went backward to The Hobbit. So it's kind of fun to have just watched the cartoon, the animation, excuse me. And I think I lovingly said that it was an anime because so many Japanese artists worked on it.
Entirely Japanese team, I believe.
So it could be technically an anime. But it's fun. It's nice to fill in the stories with some of that imagery, like fill out the depths of the stories. I don't know. It's just kind of because I read it so long ago, and I didn't watch the trilogy, but everyone was going, "Did you know it's Smaug? Did you know it's Tolkien? Smaug? What is it next? Is it going to be Balbo?" I don't know if anyone said that, but
it took me so long to unlearn Gilgalad. Or Gilgalad, excuse me. Yeah. See, now I'm saying it correctly because I had to train myself. Gilgalad is how you say it. Because I would always say
Gilgadaddy.
Gilgalad.
Gilgalad.
And then what was the other one?
Gilgalad. Yeah,
Gilgalad. Or Gilgalad.
Gilgalad.
Gilgalad, I believe. Yeah. And then the other one was
Círdan.
No,
I'm kidding. Glorfindel.
Galadrim. But now that we know the DH is the TH, Galathrim.
Galathrim.
I would always pronounce it in my head as a kid, Galadrim.
Sure.
Because that's what it looks like, and I speak English.
Well, so that's what I mean. So, like, giving people a hard time not knowing that there's, like, an appendices out there, or not caring about and the whole, how dare you, Bass? We know you're dead, but it should have been Smaug, okay?
Again, it just speaks to this probably was as low of a cost thing as they could make, and they didn't have a researcher going, how do we pronounce these names?
I'm really curious, because I'm not the one who does research either on this show. Why did they make it? Are they fans, or?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know in terms of the rights situation. Like, I know it was recent, well, fairly recent, like 10 years ago or something maybe, unearthed. There was like a one in the 60s that was made that was like a 12-minute short animation done. I haven't seen it, but it was done as a way to like hold on to rights, and then they sold them back to the Tolkien estate or something like that. So I don't know how they got the rights. I don't know why it was made. I mean, I know there was a boom in popularity in the 70s,
right? Because of
Tolkien's work
of like Rush. I think Rush was more 80s, but Led Zeppelin.
They started in the 70s, yeah, Led Zeppelin, Rush. You have the kind of counter-cultural movement that sort of helped popularize it because it was popular with them. So there's a myriad of reasons why I'm sure they were like, this was probably make money. I don't know the history of it.
In 2003, this is Wikipedia, so do with what you will with it. In a 2003 interview, Rankin stated, "I love the Tolkien work," and explained that he was able to make the film because The Hobbit was still in the public domain at the time, despite claims to the contrary from the copyright holders. They also said that they wouldn't be adding anything into the story that wasn't original. Take a note, creators of Rings of Power, and that The Hobbit cost $3 million to produce in 73. Is that right? That's a lot. That's a lot of money.
Actually, for then, yeah, that's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
I'm surprised. I mean, some of it looks good. Some of it, there's that one shot where they're coming upon Rivendell that we noticed, where it's just the company, and it's like cut out silhouettes that somebody just like slid
pushed up, and I think it just had happened after I was like, wow, the art is really beautiful.
Yeah,
and then the next one they crest the hill, and it's like, yep, yeah, I could do that, which is actually adorable.
It's like a silhouette play or something, a shadow puppet play. Amazing. But there are like really beautifully animated moments. So it's interesting the sort of breadth of quality. Some stuff is really bad and cheesy, and then some stuff is amazing. There's one particular shot of Bilbo like when Gollum screams after the riddle game when he's going to get his ring. There's a shot of Bilbo like shaking his head and his eyes kind of freaking out, and it's like really well animated, and it stuck out to me because it was much better quality animation than a lot of the other stuff. I was like, oh dang, they spent a lot of time on that shot. The other thing I really like is, well, a couple things. The character design on Elrond, I love, and I always loved as a kid.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Even though people will quibble about, well, he has a beard, and the only elf with a beard that we know about is Círdan. But Elrond looks great. The crown of stars,
gorgeous.
He looks so cool. So there's a lot of great character design. The character design on Smaug is interesting.
It's unusual.
They went with a sort of cat-like.
Well, and it's not like there aren't drawings by Tolkien himself, right? Of
Correct.
Smaug. So it's not like Tolkien said,
this isn't by him, but I have one literally in my background.
Right. Again, because it's a very visual podcast that we're doing.
Everyone can see it.
Everyone can see it. They know it intrinsically is there. It's not as though Smaug is like said, hey, he's basically the Cheshire Cat on a big reptile body. Let's go. It's very odd.
It's a bold, weird choice, and I kind of like it.
Yeah.
I kind of like it. It feels like it fits because there is something
cat-like, just wants to sit around, sleep all day, play with trinkets.
Yeah, very temperamental.
Sure.
He presents his belly.
He sure does.
But then gets very mad right after that. Which is just like a cat.
It makes a lot of sense now, even more so. I thought actually the only thing I really thought was really out of order was that thrush just following him around in the cave.
Yeah.
The magical thrush,
which is a thing. In the book, the birds talk.
Which is also weird.
The birds talk. That there's talking birds that are in the book that aren't included in the cartoon because they cut out they trimmed the whole end. There's like all this stuff with the reason, like Bard isn't in the film. Bard is the one who tells them Smaug is dead. In the book, it's a talking crow called Roach.
So why aren't there more of these in the trilogy?
Good question. I think Tolkien decided to cut out some of the more fantastical fairy tale-like elements that were in The Hobbit.
Including dragons.
Well,
he made it so that the dragons probably aren't going to come back, folks. Don't get too excited.
Yeah, Smaug was supposed to be one of the last great dragons, so it fits. There are many things from past ages that don't exist in the world anymore, and that's a very Tolkienian, Middle-earthian thing. But yeah, and you had mentioned when we get again another thing that's not in the cartoon, the stone giants, those are not present. The talking the talking birds not present. Another thing cut out of the cartoon. No, there's just no Bjorn at all.
Who's
no
Bjorn?
Bjorn. Bjorn is the shape changer. Bjorn the woodsman. He lives in a cabin.
Have we gotten to him yet?
No.
Bombadil's not in this either, right?
Correct. Bjorn is... So after they escape Goblin Town, And
down the goblin town.
So in the cartoon, the eagles just take him right to Mirkwood, but in the book, they don't take them there. They can only take them a little bit because they're afraid they'll be shot with arrows by men. And there's a little bit of
totally rational, honestly.
Yeah, because I mean, one of the things is that Gandalf, like at one point, had healed and helped mend an arrow wound of Throndir, the king. I think it's Throndir. I don't remember if it's Throndir, the king of the eagles. So they only take him a little bit, and then they go to Bjorn's place, and he shape changes into a bear and puts him up. So yeah, shape changers. Not in. I mean, they're not featured in the main narrative. They're there doing stuff. I believe Bjorn's descendants in Lord of the Rings, but I think he saw the Hobbit when he wrote it as just kind of this fairy tale, right?
Which I understand that, and it's like unfair for me to be like, okay, why aren't there throwing rock giants? And where are the ponies that can turn into unicorns? Because like it was not written as a part of this world yet that Correct. He ends up fleshing out. But it is kind of fun. It's like, yo, you had all these ex machina things happening. Like, oh, you know what? Thankfully, the bird can go tell him where it is.
Yeah. Well, and there were a lot of things that he had to. Well, we'll get into this in a future episode, but he had to change a lot of stuff from the original publication. So there is a version where, for example, Gollum is just kind of cool and friendly.
Like, hey, you want this ring? Cool, see ya.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's another thing in the cartoon. That I get why they didn't do it, because one of the through lines in this cartoon is the violence that's in The Hobbit. Like, it's a kid's book, but there's violent moments. Gandalf like kills some goblins straight away when they get taken. The moment where Bilbo almost kills Gollum, but then takes pity on him, which becomes very important later. They really skirt that and tone the violence down. I love the shots, for example, of the Goblin King when he is slain, and he just kind of and like floats away like a ghost instead of it showing like him being stabbed,
like eviscerated. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the spiders, they just kind of go kaleidoscopic and spin around,
That's right.
Which I remember vividly as seeing as a kid for the first time and going, whoa, that's so cool.
It's really actually a brilliant interpretation of showing violence without showing it. It's like in Fortnite when you get bleeped out of there instead of dead.
Exactly.
You get dematerialized.
Yeah, and you can get, rebooted and stuff. And that's one thing I thought was weird too, is like, despite this children's cartoon going, you know what, we're gonna go out of our way to not be too violent. We're gonna take out some of the more violent bits and tone down the ones we keep. They then choose, after the Battle of Five Armies, when Bilbo's like, how many of the company are left? And Gandalf's like, 7, soon to be 6. Only Thorin, Fili, and Kili die in the book. So even though they went out of their way to be like, let's be nonviolent, they're like, yeah, but let's kill 7 of the dwarves.
It's because they didn't want to do any more animation. For more than they would have to.
But they don't need to, because they show Thorin on his deathbed. There's like 2 of the, I don't remember which dwarves, maybe Glowin and Owen, I think, are attending him on his deathbed. And then it just cuts to Bilbo going home. So like they wouldn't have had to anyway if it just been like, okay, only 3 of them died. Like, because
that's actually
it was a
really
weird
odd
choice to be
that's
like, yeah,
really
over
odd.
half of the company dies. Why?
Stakes, baby, stakes.
Or just be like, no, it's just Thorin. Like, at least just have Thorin die.
You know what? Everyone else survived, including every single elf and man, but Thorin's dead.
Yeah, he's the only one, the only casualty.
In fact, I got younger.
Yeah, I added 5 years to my life.
I drank Thorin's blood, and now I feel great.
Oh my God. It
a
was
wild
it was
ride.
such a
It's a wild
bizarre
ride.
choice to me when they did that. What
I love that we're analyzing a child's.
Oh, that's what we're here to do. What
Sure.
else are we gonna do?
No, I love it.
Okay, one of the other moments that I have to mention.
Okay.
And I laughed out loud because I'd forgotten about this. When they are done with the riddle game, Bilbo comes back to meet them, and they're like, "Oh, how did you escape?" And he's like, "Oh, well, I just slipped out. I have a way of becoming almost invisible." And then Gandalf's like, "Your story has the ring of truth to it. It really rings true."
Don't
like,
you think? Oh my God.
He super emphasizes the word ring, which I thought was such a I get it because they want to convey to children Gandalf, he's not totally unwise. And then later, they'll talk about the ring on the way home and be like, "Well, put it on your mantle." But in the book, it's like he doesn't know immediately.
Right.
And so it just and this is me as an adult, as a discerning viewer now watching it, going how the heck does he know?
It's also with the quickness.
Yeah.
The quickness of how he's able to deduce. It's a ring of truth because it's the delivery is so quick.
Yeah.
And it's unnerving. It's like, yo, Gandalf, you watch me when I change or something, buddy?
Again, 70 minutes. We got to go.
I know.
We got to speed through this.
But they certainly take their time with da 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 da.
Well, yeah, because that's a banger.
Yeah.
To dungeon deep and caverns old.
Yeah, the Gablin song is a banger for sure. You can see I felt like I was watching, HR Puff and stuff or something in that moment. And they were going to the witch's lair or something. It was just so of that era, 70s. And it had the folk stuff. It had all Puff the Magic Dragon-esque stuff. I feel like it definitely is a time capsule for sure.
Oh yeah, the main theme is so dripping with 70s. Yeah, the folk jangly guitar.
There'd be no reason for us to do it and talk about it on the show, but I told Alex that we should probably watch Harry Nilsson's The Point. Me and my arrow. It's this whole children's story where this kid's called The Point and his dog Arrow. I believe that's correct.
Okay.
And she's got all these songs. Dun 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 about my best friend. Dun 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 dun.
Like a TV special?
I think it was just an animation that he made.
Oh, okay.
And Harry Nilsson.
Yeah, I'm familiar.
Beautiful, bestest singer, songwriter.
Yeah.
Best friend of John Lennon. But I have a feeling this is obviously not $3 million worth of competency going into it, but similar ilk.
Oh, of
People,
that
let me
film.
tell you about my best friend. He's a warm-hearted person who loves you to the end. You don't know that song?
No.
Oh, wow.
I'm unfamiliar.
Yeah.
We'll definitely have to watch it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be hard to top Greatest Adventure, but
No one's trying to. I also saw on the Wikipedia that the song that they wrote for the credit sequence is reprised by the writer Yarbrough is his last name. I think Glenn, but I don't remember it's in the Return of the King's animation.
Wait, from this?
Yes. I know. Is that weird?
Wait, oh yeah, because the Return of the King. I haven't seen that one, but is that also Rankin Bass?
Is it? Because I know we're gonna watch these, aren't we?
Yeah, but I remember my friend had that, I think, on VHS, and I never watched it because I was always like, "Where's Fellowship and Two Towers?" But they just made Return of the King as an animation. Oh no, you know what it is? I think I think that might have been after the Bakshi movie. Because Bakshi goes up to basically Two Towers. in one movie, and they just called it The Lord of the Rings. And then I think they never did a sequel to that because there's a whole story behind that. But then I don't know if it's Rankin and Bass, but there was a Return of the King animation.
It is Rankin and Bass, and it looks horrible.
Yeah.
The animation of Frodo is horrifying.
Well, I'm excited to see it because I've seen the Bakshi one. I've never seen Return of the King.
What do you want to do first? Do you want to do this next? Well, I feel like we should.
God, probably after our discussions of the Hobbit.
Sure,
we'll talk about it. I don't know because I think we were.
Casey Kasem is Mary.
What?
In Return of the King.
Are you kidding me?
This is I'm Casey Kasem. So this is completely. I'll save my Casey Kasem story for that.
This is wild.
Roddy McDowall is Sam.
What?
Orson Bean is Bilbo in this one, and he's Bilbo in The Return of the King, and he's also Frodo.
Ooh, this is dual role.
Wild. Yeah. And so Glenn Yarbrough, I was right in remembering it. He wrote the song, and it becomes associated with him professionally, and he ends up coming back as the minstrel to do it.
Wow. Okay. I'm so excited for Return of the King now.
This is wild.
I've never seen it, and that's probably one of the only Tolkien adaptations I've never checked out, and probably for good reason.
Wow.
I think I was dodging a bullet as a kid, not having seen that.
Well, it doesn't look good. I'm solely judging it by the cover. Allow me that.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like the animation is good at all.
I would imagine they probably just did it to try and cash in on any potential hype that was there after the Bakshi film.
It says at Bilbo Baggins' 129th birthday. Is that correct?
No.
In Rivendell?
Why would you? In Rivendell. Yeah. No.
Oh, I'm sorry, because that's when the Return of the King is. I'm confused now.
No,
I was confused.
Because the 100. Or yeah, it would have been.
His nephew Frodo explains why he is missing a finger from his hand.
So wait, it's a framing device? It's a framing device?
While the minstrel of Gondor sings a ballad that tells the story of the quest to destroy the One Ring.
9 fingers and the Ring of Doom. I've heard the song.
So wait, he does lose a finger? I forgot about that.
Oh, yes.
Let's just hold off on talking about that.
But yeah, that does make sense because the 111th and then 20 years after that was when they set off. So it's like after the quest.
The film's original working title was Frodo, The Hobbit 2.
What? No!
Wow. The release was threatened by a lawsuit filed by the Tolkien estate and Fantasy Films on the basis that Rankin Bass had not secured the U.S. and Canadian television rights to the book. The lawsuit was settled amicably, allowing it to proceed with a May 1980 release. Wow.
Is that why they called it The Hobbit 2? Because they thought they could get away with, like, this is a sequel to The Hobbit, and we made The Hobbit, even though that was possible. They were claiming it was public domain, which I know there were issues with that.
It's
That's
possible.
So
the
weird.
film is often mistaken for a sequel of Ralph Bakshi's 1978 animated film, The Lord of the Rings. After Rankin Bass became defunct in 1987, Warner Bros. Acquired the rights. Wow.
Wild. I'm so looking forward. Maybe we'll have to do Bakshi then Return of the King. I don't know.
They acquired the rights for a special home video distribution and chose to market the film along with The Hobbit as installments of an animated Tolkien trilogy with Bakshi's Lord of the Rings. Interesting.
Gotcha.
So of course you got conflated with the.
Well, I know. Like as a kid, I was like, wait, is this like? I think everyone thought that, and especially because the Bakshi one doesn't. It only goes up through a little bit of, I don't even know if it does all of Two Towers. But that leads me back to the ending of this first Rankin Bass animation, where we get Bilbo saying, this moment is so cheesy. And it's, again, like, how does Gandalf, is he omniscient? Where he's like, Bilbo's, I'm going to put the ring on my mantelpiece. And Gandalf says, well, you don't know about the ring and all its powers and what will happen. And Bill was like, what? And then Gandalf says, well, your descendants might, and they may find that this is just the beginning of another. And it's like, why do you, Gandalf, if you knew this now.
Don't let him take the ring, bro.
Dude, go consult Saruman now. Don't wait, 50, however many years. It's a long time.
Wild.
60, 70, 80. You had all this time and you knew? What the hell? But again, teeing up, this isn't the end of the story. We're going to have another one.
It's so cheeseball. It's so cheeseball. Again, this is talking about the Return of the King one, but this will whet our appetite for when we watch it. This does say that there's a better source needed, but it says director Arthur Rankin Jr. later stated, we tried to do The Return of the King, but it's an awful lot to put into it. I think Peter Jackson is having the same problems in his films. You can't deviate from these books or somebody will wait for you on the street. In The Return of the King, we had to summarize what happened before and then put it all together in 2 hours. It's not a very good film. Asked why he chose only to make The Return of the King instead of making the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy, Rankin admitted, I didn't know that the audience would sit still for it. I was wrong.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's imagine it's a challenge to do a movie where you're telling the third part of the tale. Wow. Why make that choice to let's summarize the first 2/3? I mean, I guess because you want to get to the end, but it's a bizarre choice to do that instead of. I get why they didn't condense everything.
I was going to say, but I think you could almost condense it with more success.
Right. Because otherwise, it's just a mess. But I guess we'll get there when we get there.
Because they condensed the crap out of The Hobbit, and it's not like The Hobbit isn't able to be condensed quite easily. But and what's interesting about reading The Hobbit now and watching that story, I did not realize how it was boom, 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 all these things keep on happening to them. And granted, there's time in between, but why would he waste? He literally says nothing happened in Rivendell, so we're not going to waste time on it. Yep. But so many eventful things happen.
He does the same thing in Lord of the Rings. If
I love that.
Yeah, because it's what's the word?
I don't know.
It's relative. They spend 2 weeks in Rivendell in The Hobbit.
Right.
And in The Lord of the Rings, they spend months there. They spend a whole season there almost.
Right.
So based on the length of the chapters, it's okay, sure, that's a lot of condensing of months and months of a stay.
He couldn't write that and keep people interested.
No, and why would you? Because it's most of the time they're just chilling and resting. So if the title of the chapter in The Hobbit is A Short Rest, then in The Hobbit, or excuse me, in The Lord of the Rings, it's, I guess, a long rest, right? For all the D&D 5th edition players out there.
Right, a long rest. Any other things you'd like the audience to know about your feelings and trip down memory lane, my love?
Just that... I think... if you haven't seen this movie and you're an adult and you're skeptical, just go in, dive into the deep end. Just go along for the ride. You're going to have a good time. Focus on the songs, like we said, and it's all good. I mean, can't remember how many times I've just gone to YouTube and played the songs from this movie.
Oh, that's so sweet.
So just enjoy the ride. There's bad parts and it's fine. It's cheesy.
Oh my God. It's not dissimilar from me trying to show people the Frog Prince from the Muppets and them going, what is this?
Exactly. Yeah.
Why are we, what is happening? Why is that frog drowning? I thought he could swim, but it exists in my brain as a core memory, and this feels like it's a core memory, even though I know I didn't have it as a kid. If I have to be honest, I don't think I watched it. Part of me really wants to say, of course I did, because it feels like a weird thing for my dad not to have showed us. But I just think it passed us by.
No.
Well, I will say, it's so nice to go on this beginning of the journey with you, Alex, and
the Ace of Cups.
Just go on the Ace of Cups with you and get to like learn what makes little Alex tick, and
you're seeing
what makes
all of the things that formed me.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely came to it at a similar time, but just in different ways, and you fell deeply in love with it, and so it's nice for me to fall more deeply in love with it with you.
Yeah, it's great.
So I think heads up for this week, if you're listening in real time, there will not be an episode on this is the episode for November the 6th. Nope. November. Okay.
The 8th.
The 8th. This is the episode for November the 8th. There will be no episode for the 15th, but then we'll be back at it.
We're taking a short rest.
But I have a feeling within that time, Alex and I will have completed our read of the Hobbit. It's possible. So I think that's what we'll do next. Again, we love to know what you want to be involved in. If you want to share a piece of Tolkien history that's special to you, we'd love to feature it. But if you want, maybe brush up on actual Hobbit lore and read that book with us, and we'll tweet about some thoughts that we have as we go along.
It's a quick read, so you got a couple weeks before our episodes come out. Are we gonna do, I think, 2 episodes on the Hobbit?
Yeah, we'll see how much there is to talk about, because there is a lot to talk about. I'm just trying. I have to ask myself. I want to ask you all these questions while we're doing it, because I'm like, well, what about this? What about this? And so I do, but I think we'll see how much there is. I don't want to stretch it to make it let's just talk about it for 2 hours.
Right.
And we could also do that. We could talk about it for 2 hours if we want to. So,
and then I think we'll maybe take a look at the other adaptation of The Hobbit.
Which I think that's right. I think we'll get the book under our belt, and then we'll see how Peter Jackson was able to squeeze that lemon for days. Just for days. He extended the lantern oil for his tribe.
Look,
for 8 days.
It's like butter scraped over too much bread. But we'll get there.
He multiplied the fish, and just because some people got bones doesn't mean it didn't get fish, okay? There's a couple different ways you can interact with us and let us know what you like, what you don't like, and if it's mean, just don't bother. Podcasts of the Rings at gmail.com, patreon.com/podoftherings, or you can find us on Twitter at Pod of the Rings, or Instagram at POTRPOD. I have been Jessica Lynn Verdi, and he has been
Alexander Mitchell.
Alex, anything else you want these fine people to know about you?
Just that
we have our Discord that people can jump into. We've had a couple of new people jump into our Discord. You're going to find the link there at the bottom of the liner notes here. We have a couple different areas where you could talk about this podcast and some Tolkien stuff. We'd love for you to join, because we both Twitch stream, and we're either talking about this or about Fortnite or Minecraft.
Look,
actually, let's be fair.
You can see the wonderful image of Smaug behind me that I referenced earlier on my
and site. You can check out when Alex streams. He built a tavern. He built a hobbit hole.
Yeah,
it's very sweet. We're having a good time, and I love doing this with you, my love.
It's so good.
Great. Until next time.
May our roads meet again. The great news.